This is going to be a difficult thing to talk about. Hello everyone, welcome to the video. I'm going to say immediately off the bat that this video is going to tackle themes of sexual harassment and misconduct. So if any of those topics are in any way traumatic for you or triggering for you, then I'd suggest clicking off now, but I thank you for your interest in the video. Second of all, I'd like to say that I in no way am claiming to speak on behalf of anyone that I mention in this video, particularly the victims, as I am lucky enough and fortunate enough not to have experienced any form of sexual harassment or misconduct in my life. I merely intend to amplify the voices of those people, particularly women, who I believe need to be heard, and using my platform to do so. Third of all, I will not be making any money off of this video, mainly as I believe profiting off of other people's trauma is just kind of a shitty thing to do. But you may notice that you'll have seen an ad perhaps before this video, or maybe in the duration that I've been speaking so far, and that is because whatever this video makes will be being donated to the following charity that you can see on screen. You may also notice that I'm not really editing this, because I want my feelings on this to be as raw and as untampered with as possible. So if I pause at any point, I apologise. I normally cut those things out, but in this case I felt that it was necessary to be as realistic and as unfiltered as I can. So, for those of you who don't know, The Guardian recently came out with an article talking about Noel Clarke, specifically the fact that 20 women had come forward with allegations against him. For those of you who don't know, Noel Clarke was big in obviously Doctor Who, which most of you will know. He played Mickey Smith. He also, I believed, assisted in the writing somewhat with Torchwood as well. So he's well known within obviously not only acting, but Doctor Who specifically. And 20 women came forward with allegations of him groping them, as well as just sexually harassing them, essentially. And before I get into this, I just want to say, I know I'm going to get comments on this video, at least like 5 or 6 of them, most likely being like, innocent until proven guilty. And I have a few responses to that. Number one, before you immediately assume that these people are lying to you, try and show some empathy towards them, as these things aren't easy to come out with. They, obviously are very personal things, and most allegations that ever come out towards anyone have been taking place over a number of years. And I will say as well that allegations are still coming out towards Noel Clarke. Someone actually quote tweeted the article saying that make that 21, and also a drama school that had worked with Noel Clarke had also said that they did not do a good enough job protecting him from their students. So suffice to say, the evidence is stacking up against Noel Clarke, so whichever way you slice it, the odds aren't great. So even though, while yes, innocent until proven guilty is the legal standard, it's not necessarily the moral one. And in this case, obviously, the evidence, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, is obviously making it way more apparent that he is likely guilty. Now, I will say that when I said that innocent until proven guilty is a legal standard, what I meant by that was people are very liberal when they apply the term innocent until proven guilty. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to something like a sexual harassment claim, people will often use it because they don't deem something as important. They don't deem something like sexual harassment as important. Whereas with something like, I don't know, a murder case, if 20 people came out and said that someone did it, no one really ever says innocent until proven guilty. It's often just used to cover up the topics that people don't think are as important. At least in my experience, what I've seen in the responses to the Guardian article as well. I'm not saying that everyone who's ever used that line of defense ever is trying to, undermine these claims, but I am saying that it does seem to happen. With that said, I don't agree with the idea of guilty till proven innocent either, because people can come out with things that basically can completely change the initial narrative that is set up, which is why my basic principle is listen to the victims when they come out with things, hear them, but give a brief window of opportunity for the accused to respond before you basically write those other people off completely, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to be as fair about this as I can. But yeah, the Noel Clarke accusations, I won't go into detail about all of them because they're quite graphic, but suffice to say, they don't paint Noel Clarke in a very good light, and it's not looking good for him. Now, he has apologised. He said what can essentially boil down to, I'm sorry I did those things, but I didn't do them. He basically said he's sorry for his actions in the past, but he denied any claims of sexual misconduct, which again is kind of what I said, is just sorry not sorry, kind of, which to me at least makes the idea of him being guilty more apparent, because saying sorry without saying sorry, it feels very calculated, like a PR move, in my opinion, which to me makes it more likely that he is guilty. And I think we need to I understand that people struggle with the idea that people that they like turning out to do bad things, but he has. I feel 99% confident in saying that he has done bad things. With the amount of them that are coming out, I'm confident in saying that. Now, if that turns out to be wrong, I will hold my hands up and I will hold myself accountable and say I'm incorrect. I'm basically putting myself on the cross, and if I'm wrong, then they can hammer the nails into my hands. But as far as I'm concerned, he is guilty. But this wasn't the only thing to happen in regards to sexual harassment in the world of Doctor Who. I hate even saying that because it seems like I'm trying to bring this back to Doctor Who, and to be honest, this whole issue is so much bigger than that, but obviously the video will be titled something like Addressing the Doctor Who Allegations, because obviously that is, what they are. Essentially, they are accusations against Doctor Who, people involved in Doctor Who in various capacities. But it's so much bigger than just that, and I think we need to realise that while yes, it is a terrible time to be a Doctor Who fan right now, it's not all about that. And instead of saying how bad it is to be a Doctor Who fan, try as well to think how bad it is to be one of the people on the receiving ends of all this. The second thing that I want to talk about, so for those of you who are unaware, John Barrowman obviously plays Captain Jack Harkness, has done since Series 1, and several people over many, many years have come out and basically said that he got his little Barrowman out on set and would occasionally put it on people. And due to the Noel Clarke situation, this was brought back up in response because people were going, oh, Noel Clarke from Doctor Who, he did that. Well, John Barrowman was also doing stuff. Yeah, we need to highlight that. So that's where that came from. It wasn't out of a sense of trying to cover up the Noel Clarke stuff. It was more just a byproduct of what was happening with Noel. So it wasn't in any way intended to be anyone covering anything up. It was merely people saying, yes, this was bad. Let's also address this person who also did a bad thing. Now, I've seen a couple defenses of this, because the thing is with the John Barrowman thing is that it's been well documented. Even he himself has admitted to doing this, but it's always played off by the cast, at least, as a joke. And that is one thing that people have said is, oh, it's a joke, or so it can't be that bad if they're saying it's a joke. Or, they didn't press any charges against him, so it couldn't have been that bad. And what I'll say to that is, just because someone doesn't press charges against someone, or it's played off as a joke or considered a joke, doesn't mean that the behaviour itself is acceptable. Imagine, right, if someone was robbing a store, okay, and there was, 4 people around them, and all of them agreed that it was fine and okay and cool to do, and it was fine and it was funny, would that make the action of robbing a store any more acceptable? So why does it apply here? The simple answer is that people don't like the idea that John Barrowman did anything wrong. It's what I said earlier. People struggle with the idea of people they love doing bad things. And people have said to me, well, why do you want an apology out of him? Why do you want him to even address it? And it's because the people who are tweeting about John Barrowman want him to be held accountable for his actions. Because realistically, in any other field, if you did that, you would most likely be fired. But for some reason, it was just sort of swept well under the carpet. So basically, people want the same standards applied to John Barrowman as would be to them, which I think is a perfectly valid thing. That, and also, you've got to remember that these people have, like, as I said, fans. So when the fans know that you've done something wrong, they want you to apologize, and they want you to be, like, held accountable so they can continue to support you, because otherwise people might not feel comfortable at supporting that person knowing what they did. Now, I'm not saying that an apology would fix everything necessarily, but I do think if John Barrowman addressed it, it would severely mitigate people's outrage by it, because this is something that has existed for a long time, but has been brought up as a result of the Noel Clarke thing. It's not because people just want to find someone to cancel. It's people realizing, oh wait, John Barrowman was also doing dodgy stuff on Series 1. In my initial tweet about this, I did kind of say the BBC should stop putting John Barrowman in Doctor Who things, or just, people should just stop putting John Barrowman in things in general. And I think if his behaviour has changed, and he can apologise and say, look, I don't act like this anymore, what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry, I think that was a bit of an overstatement on my behalf. However, if he doesn't do that, and it's proven that his behaviour continued, then I do believe that that would be the best course of action. Because whether you like it or not, privates out, they're called privates for a reason. But getting them out and putting them on people, regardless of the context, is just not a normal thing to do in the slightest. So, yeah, anyone saying that that's not a big deal because they made jokes about it, I don't agree with that. But the final thing I want to talk about, and this is one of the things that I've kind of been reluctant to even mention at all, but I felt the need since I was on this topic, and I'm no doubt going to have people scrutinising every word I've said in this, to talk about the recent allegations against members of the fan base, and the, obviously the proven allegations against people. And now, here's the thing. Both of what the people did, but the 2 people who we know to have done things were completely in the wrong. And as I said, listen to the victims, because the thing about the 2 people that we know of, and again, I'm trying very hard not to say names, because A, I don't want to cause any additional trauma for the victims, I don't want to try and drag their names into it either, but B, I don't want this to become like a, oh, you did this, you did that sort of channel. I don't want that. What I will say, however, is that what they did was reprehensible, both of them. If you want to know what they did, I suggest going on Twitter, basically, and having a look. But what I will say is, do not try and frame it as they are some sort of victim of cancel culture, both of them. They were vile people who did vile things and used their positions to their advantage. Do not try and paint them as good guys in all this, because they're not. Maybe try empathizing with, I don't know, the victims? Just a thought. But yeah, my main takeaway from this is listen to victims. Because more often than not, when they say something and there's multiple people saying things, there's normally some level of validity to it. Not always, but a lot of the time. I think there will be more in coming days, not only on the celebrity front, but also just on the fandom front, because what happened recently has seemed to open the floodgates for more people to come forward, and I encourage anyone who has had dealings with these things to come forward. But that's basically all my thoughts on this. Thank you for listening to them, and goodbye.